Here we'll learn of the options available to distribute output files generated by the ConnectFlow plugin when orders are placed. So there are several methods available. This includes posting to FTP, posting to API, emails, hot folders, and webhooks. Which one or multiple you choose, and you are able to choose more than one at once, will depend on your own configuration and what your third-party application is capable of linking to. So we'll start off with post to FTP. So I'm just going to activate that first of all to get the additional settings. So the first thing we need is FTP details. So this allows output documents to be sent directly to an FTP endpoint. The expected format of the endpoint would be an FTP link. So for example, using the FTP name or an IP address, the format may look something similar to, say, something like this. So FTP example.com/job tickets. Alternatively, it might be an IP address. So you might have something like this, for example. If the FTP needs authentication, the username and password and user domain are required in these fields here. Okay, so next we have post to API. So again, we can just activate that checkbox to see the additional settings. So the first thing we need is the API endpoint URL. So enter an API endpoint required to specify the destination of that output file. And this can either be HTTP or HTTPS endpoints. We then have HTTP headers. So use this field if you require to configure HTTP headers against your API endpoint. So an example here might be, for example, well, as you can see in the example below, it could be something like this: header name : value. Each line is parsed individually, and the first colon is the divider. So each line is divided into a key and a value pair. Data should be valid, should be one per line, and this is an optional setting. We have one API call per order line. So this selects whether we send one API call for the entire order or a separate API call for different order lines. Deselecting the checkbox as it is by default will send one API call for the entire order. Selecting this checkbox will send separate API calls for each job within the order. So use basic authentication. So it's unchecked by default. However, if your API endpoint expects authentication, select this checkbox and enter the relevant username and password in the fields below it. The next section is API response handling. So these settings provide the ability to define some API response handling, beginning with success flags. So your API endpoint must allow for this in order to utilize this functionality. To begin, select the format of the error handling. This is defining the format in which a response will be received from your third-party system. And your available options here are JSON, XML, plain text, or no handling at all. So if I select XML in here, for example, you can see we get a new option available, or a few new options, the first of which is success flag path. So the expected response from your API would be an object. Within that object, you may have entities such as the success flag. The success flag path allows you to specify the specific path to the required information. And this could be, for example, such as order.success.response. Next down, we have available success values. This allows you to define what success values are. For example, here we have true, T, success, and 1 marked as success values. If the response from the third-party system is any of these defined values, then the action is considered to be successful. You can use a pipe delimiter to separate those different success values. We then have negate success value. So this is switching the behavior of the above settings. So any match with the success values specified above will mean the process has instead failed. The next section down is error information. So here we can add a new error path, and we can add a new info path if we wish to as well. So we'll cover both of these at once. We can specify error or information pieces. By clicking these buttons, you are presented with some additional options. So the additional path fields that we get, so error path and info path, as with the success section, you specify a format type and enter the path of the response to look out for. If the path exists at all in the response from the third-party system, the status of the job is set to MIS failed, and the content of that error path is included for additional information. A similar process is followed to obtain additional information from the response without specifying the job as failed. That's the API section completed there. Hot folders we covered in the initial setup, but just as for completeness context in this case, it is possible to add your generated output document to one of your specified hot folders within your Infigo system. If linked using Infigo Sync to an external folder outside of the Infigo system, it is also able to push the file out of the specified folder. So once we've activated the drop to hot folder section, we just need to enter the ID number of the hot folder, and a list of available hot folders is detailed underneath here. So these hot folders are configured independently within Infigo, and more information on configuring hot folders can be found within the Infigo Academy. We have send to emails. So enter an email address within the email addresses field to submit an email containing the output document content. So please note this places the output document content within the email body, not as an attachment. And multiple email addresses can be defined with a comma separator. Okay, so we can apply an XSLT to the emails as well. So this is an XSLT transformation script that can be selected or input here, aimed at reformatting the text placed into the body of the email. So this works the same way as the one we saw in a previous tutorial. You can enter custom information here, custom formatting, or you can select from a predefined list. We then have webhook. So if, for example, you wish to send status updates back to Infigo, you can do this via webhooks. Your third-party system must be specifically allowing for this in order to utilize this functionality. So webhook links and additional information related to webhooks can be found at the very bottom of the Connect Flow configuration page. You can also see additional information by clicking on this button here. So just to summarize this additional webhook information, this section contains detailed information such as file format configurations the Infigo system is expecting, along with order of actions and a list of available statuses that we can actually change it to. Going back up to the webhook configuration settings, we also have a shared secret. So this relates to authentication around the use of webhooks and is used to protect access. Specify whether the shared secret is shared in the XML or in the header, and generate the shared secret code from within the interface. So we've got allow CIDR ranges. So this allows us to specify IPs which are allowed access. So you can leave this field empty to allow all IPs to have access. XSLT for incoming calls. This is the message which is received from the third-party system to update the status. It's used to transform incoming data to a known JSON structure, and this is required for webhook actions. And then XSLT for response. This is the message which is sent to the third-party system in response. Used, for example, if the third-party system requires acknowledgement of success or failure of the status update. It's used to transform incoming data to a known JSON structure, and this is a requirement for webhook actions.